Sorry for the stock footage in the background, but this isn't going to be one of those elaborately edited videos that hangs your attention on every single piece. So if you're the kind of person who gets pissy over yapping, I suggest you go jiggle your father's keys to amuse yourself. For those just finding this video because some drama YouTuber just linked to it, my name is Lillian Valerie Orchard. I'm a YouTuber who does media critique that is predominantly focused on characters and themes. I've often gotten a reputation for being negative based on a minority of my videos, but my work actually takes concepts and ideas and unpacks them regardless of quality. I'm also a survivor of long-term physical, emotional, and sexual abuse that went on from my birth until I was about 26. This is important to mention because I started my channel in 2009 when a lot of this abuse was still ongoing. So I've been working in the public eye and have had my interpersonal relationships scrutinized by the public while I was escaping my abuse and going to therapy and recovering. And I can't claim to have recovered or healed to a significant degree until I was 28. During that time, many of my old and new abusers have used my often erratic and strange behavior as a weapon against me. I have also been stalked incessantly on the neo-Nazi forum Kiwi Farms and have had my address leaked in multiple places and have even been assaulted in real life, though I have no proof the assaults happened that wouldn't be extremely invasive to show. Over the years, my abusers, which include former friends who I broke things off with because they were abusive, have tried to deplatform me with increasingly extreme accusations, right up to weaponizing the right wing's rhetoric about trans people and even policing my ethnicity. For the most part, I've attempted to simply ignore these things and move on with my day. But after 12 years, it's reached the point I can't just ignore it anymore and decided to unpack all of this harassment. Granted, this video isn't going to cover everything. It mostly covers the accusations of me being a groomer, the accusations my sister has made, and someone's weird tangent about my heritage. If you're here asking about Madhouse or Iris and Kira or Scars or whatever other project you found in my back dumpster, you're gonna have to wait until another time. This is the important shit. If you're here expecting an apology for me being rude to you personally, well, it is actually here. Skip to the conclusion. Most of this video is taken from the videos of Ethel Thurston, with additional videos by ILoveKimPossibleALot and Courtney Peet. I will not be showing clips unless they're especially relevant, but I will have the video we're discussing here, and the timestamp in question just underneath it. And just because I know someone will ask, I'm going to put the music down here. Some of these videos contain references to other videos or claims I won't be covering, which will not be acknowledged. Like I said, this is important stuff. You can find all or most of the links down in the description below, so if you want to just poke through this stuff yourself, you can go right ahead. And fair warning, I'm not going to be diplomatic about this. I am very angry that I've been lied about and harassed for this long, and I fucking deserve this. So Rachel Cohen made a video trying to aggregate all the accusations against me, but in typical Rachel fashion, it's made up of other people doing the actual work while she sits there telling people to like and subscribe, so we won't be talking about Rachel very much herself. She opens her video with a discussion about me supposedly faking being indigenous. Full disclosure right up front. My family's Cherokee on my mother's side. My grandfather's grandparents had to hide their identity because of racism, because it was the late 1800s, so my grandfather, and by extension his 5 children, were largely displaced from their heritage. Especially since my grandfather was in the military and ended up being stationed in Canada and made roots there. My aunt Sharp moved to Ottawa as an adult and started tracing all this down, which led to the remaining members of the family slowly reconnecting over time. Granted, not everyone has. My sister and brother largely rejected their heritage, though my brother kind of turned around on that after having 2 Inuk children. And I did it first, but I've been slowly reconnecting with it as well. It's been especially slow for me because I'm the black sheep of the family, and there's a great deal of bad blood and bitter feelings involved. Everyone in my family had a hand in severely hurting me when I was a child, 2 of them, far more than others, and to date only one of them, my mother, has offered anything close to remorse or an apology. So doing anything with the family is an emotional ordeal. I have never suggested to be an authority on Indigenous issues. I have issues with the word Indian, but that's because I'm an eternal pedant. I am reconnecting and will do so at my own pace, but I am always making that clear to people if they ever try to go to me to get their opinions on Indigenous issues affirmed. Anyway, because some people don't like me, and I guess going after an Indigenous woman is too much for their conscience to bear, they've been trying to accuse me of being a pretendian, usually citing my skin tone. So KP dragged someone in who claimed to be an expert on investigating claims of pretendianism. Matt's section is largely reserved for a document attached to the video, which starts with preface. This section was penned specifically by an unenrolled descendant of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians and an Apache affiliation of unclear origin. Unenrolled. So this person has the same ancestral claims that I do. For those not aware about how being Indigenous works, enrollment is 90% of your status as an Indigenous person. If you're enrolled in your tribe and you're a recognized member, congratulations, you don't have to prove anything else to anyone ever again. If you're not, and you have a claim, you have to remain keenly aware of that at all times. You are entitled to your heritage, regardless of your enrollment status, and the experiences of displaced Indigenous people are buried and confusing at times, and a lot of us are afraid of talking about it because of shit like this. The speed at which you reconnect and enroll is completely up to you, but if you aren't enrolled, it would be a very stupid idea to try and speak on anything with authority. Anyway, Mad immediately starts speaking with authority, and it has to be seen to be believed because I swear they just Googled First Nation status and went from there. They state right up front that blood quantum is a harmful notion in the community and then start focusing entirely on blood quantum. Again, for those who aren't aware, blood quantum is the amount of native blood you have. It's how mixed you are. The vast majority of Indigenous people are of mixed heritage, so the US federal government imposed a restriction on Native people in that you need to have 25% blood quantum in order to be considered Indigenous. Why did they do this with only Indigenous people and not Black or Hispanic people? To restrict tribal growth and prevent Indigenous people from claiming their heritage. The US government has been basically trying to starve out the tribes for years so they can move in and claim their sovereign territory. If that all sounds like open and brazen genocide to you, that's because it is. Tribal populations will decline steeply over the next 100 years if they keep enrollment at 1/4 blood quantum. That is the entire purpose of blood quantum. So this person recognizes that and then proceeds to just spend the next majority of this fussing over my fucking blood quantum. And here's a take from 5 years ago, let's act like that still matters. They then proceed to nitpick the color palette of my puppet, which is light-skinned just like I am in real life, but apparently it's not the exact hex code people want from me, and then bitch about the fact that the puppet wears feather earrings. I like cute, tacky things, like fuck you. The last claim this person makes is that I have changed my tribe my family comes from and that my grandfather wasn't Cherokee. They get this information from Courtney, who is just making shit up. My grandfather is Cherokee. You could Google him. It's on everything that mentions him. There are news articles about him. There's no doubt that the family claim is Cherokee, so Courtney accusing this of being a lie is itself a lie. All of this person's information just comes from Courtney, who they are taking at face value based on what? Well, given the fact that they devolve really hard into complaining about how I lose my temper with people who bother me about this, they're essentially claiming you didn't keep your cool under years of harassment from invasive randos, therefore you're sus. And hanging on the fact that I have feather earrings, like they're clearly bothered. They're clearly bothered about me, and so are taking people at their word if they reaffirm Mad's narrative. This is why they straight up lie about my grandfather's tribe, because 90% of their claim I'm faking is based on blood quantum, and the Cherokee Nation doesn't use blood quantum. So many of their arguments are based around federal status and not tribal membership. And that's because Mad is an unenrolled Indigenous person scolding another unenrolled Indigenous person for having the exact same credentials that they do, but who talks openly about the experience of reconnecting with their culture and is honest and upfront about being a displaced Indigenous person. Did I buy those earrings because it made me feel the tiniest bit closer to my aunt, who I'm not particularly close with, but who I always thought was really cool? Yes, viewer. Yes, I did. Do I own a dream catcher because I'm a basic bitch? Actually, no. My mother gave this to me when I was 7 after coming home from Oklahoma where she'd been visiting her father. So its meaning to me is entirely sentimental. I've had this dream catcher for 25 years. I've had this longer than I've been reconnecting with my own heritage. It predates my awareness of my family history. Sure, it might be something my mother picked up from a craftswoman thinking, oh hey, my kids will like these, but its meaning to me is what matters. My mother was always trying to get me interested in my heritage, and one of my bigger regrets is not being more receptive to it, especially now after she's been the only one to offer me a sincere apology for how I was treated as a child. Is Mad this open and upfront about their relationship with their own heritage? I don't know. I didn't check. But given the aggression with which they weaponize the wrong info and even rhetoric that skirts the orbit of genocidal, I'd be hard-pressed if they did. It sounds to me, at least, that Mad not meeting the requirements for enrollment in their tribe bothers them, and they're taking it out on me. But if you're displaced from your family's tribe, you're still entitled to embrace your heritage in however way you want. A pretendian is someone who takes up attention and money that would go to Indigenous organizations. I'm not someone who does public speaking on Indigenous issues, and I always say that I'm displaced, assimilated, and reconnecting, and you should ask someone else. These are not things a pretendian does. You're taking part in the harassment of another Indigenous person based on the lies their abuser is spreading. Lies you can easily check and refuse to. And I'm not even going to hold this against them. A lot of people have been tricked into being a part of this harassment mob. Outside of Brittany, Patch, Courtney, KP, and Ethel, if most of these people backed away and stopped talking about me, everything would be forgiven. I don't want an apology or a public retraction. I just want to be left alone. I know it's common online to expect people who've wronged you to prostrate themselves in public for the next several years, but I don't. Just leave me the fuck alone. So KP then interviews Courtney, which we're going to get into later because I'm saving Courtney for the last, before moving on to her attempt to harass Sketchy by claiming Sketchy refused to hear her out. Basically, she wanted to talk to Sketchy about all these accusations made against me, and then shows screenshots that makes it very obvious that she's lying. Sketchy says rather plainly, I am not comfortable discussing my friends when they're not around, to which KP offers adding a third party whose relation to the case she had yet to disclose. But she is unfortunately missing the point. Sketchy did not want to have this conversation while I wasn't present, so the third party had to be me. And I know this because I have the rest of the DM. Sketchy was willing to have this conversation, but only if it wasn't behind my back. I had to be there to defend myself against unfounded accusations, and KP didn't want that because I openly deny the accusations. It's also worth mentioning that Sketchy is aware of everything that's said about me. Like, when Courtney popped up, I was in my private channel with my friends talking about it. So Sketchy isn't somebody who's been kept in the dark about the accusations. He is aware of them. He is fully aware of them, and he is aware of the level to which they are false. So when KP said that nobody would hear her out, she lied. KP straight up lied. She even tries to gaslight Sketchy by claiming he's choosing his own personal comfort. Nope. No, he wasn't. He would have had this conversation if I was present. Something he would have also done if she had been accused of something or someone approached her. Sketchy refuses to talk about a friend behind their back, which is a perfectly fine boundary to have. KP then goes on to show a recording of her confronting me about Courtney. Minor correction, this happens before the Sketchy DMs, but I'm not going to go back and rewrite this section because I'm disrespectful like that. Where she confronts me about Courtney's accusations, among a few other things, but this is the only important part. I deny the accusations and point out how Courtney has been on a transphobic poison-spitting brigade, which I have screenshots for. KP's counterpoint was, and you're gonna love this, the accusations were too severe for someone to just lie about.
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
KP, people have made worse accusations about you. Never mind that trans people get accused of preying on minors all the time. Never mind that when you don't have a significant social media presence, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by doing it. Never mind that this is literally policy in some states. KP decides my denying of the accusations carries less weight than her making them because she just decided that was the case. She then decided to offer to mediate a call between me and Courtney, and are you fucking kidding me? Oh boy, yeah, I sure would love it if the Queen of the Lollipop Guild organized a call between me and my abuser, like we're on an episode of fucking Smiling Friends, just because she's a gullible shit with all the political awareness of a drunk sparrow in a rave. Fuck you. Some people were surprised at how abruptly I ended the call when KP said she wasn't comfortable with the accusations made against me. I just said, all right, bye, and left and blocked her on everything. Simple reason for that, I don't want to be friends with anyone who believes any of this garbage, and that's something I'm entitled to do. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't call her any names, I just said bye and left. You're not comfortable being friends with me because of the accusations made against me? Fine, bye. I'll set whatever boundaries I want, thanks. It wasn't that quick, honestly. The fact that for a while, KP would jump into my streams and immediately ask to self-promote before even engaging with the conversations always rubbed me the wrong way. But I mean, she did at least ask first, so I guess I can't hold it against her. And you can go back over the podcast we did talking about personal trauma where I bring up most of this stuff and she's just kind of disinterested in anything that isn't about her. We just kind of accepted that. I mean, it's not that KP was a shitty friend, it's just, she was just kind of there, and it was just something that made cutting the thread upon KP crossing my strictest boundaries easier to do. This isn't even to call KP a bad person for being an aloof, self-centered weirdo who's always disassociating. It's just that all that stuff made me realize I wasn't really gonna miss her. KP ends her video claiming I can't debunk this because she uses hard evidence. We've gone a bit into why she hasn't, and more is to come. But in general, you should always be extremely suspicious of any accuser who tries to convince you not to listen to the accused's response. There's red flags, and then there's red flags with an air raid siren and flashing lights. Okay, so Brittany's been having a fit for the last decade, but all of her issues with me were summarized in her section of this one video. So we're going to use that. Brittany accuses me of harassment, coercion of sex acts, accusations of a sock puppet, and accuses me of being attracted to minors and animals. Animals, that's a new one. Anyway, when Brittany makes all these claims, she proceeds to say that the chats are lost. How convenient. You're gonna see a lot of that, by the way, except not really, because she actually does show chat logs, allegedly of me and her, with the ends of our surnames to identify us, using it as proof of me prompting unwanted physical roleplay. The physical roleplay being a cuddle. But what's even better here, is that her screenshot, it shows her initiating it. She accuses me of prompting an unwanted snuggle, and then the screenshot is of her prompting the snuggle. I have to laugh because if I don't laugh, I'll cry. Especially with this next one because it actually visibly made me angry. Brittany brings up a claim about a sock puppet account and accuses me of using it for coercion. The chat logs of this account are shown multiple times, but they have no name, no profile picture, and no timestamp. This is what Brittany uses to accuse me of pedophilia. When someone else makes an accusation with no proof, Brittany will go, I can confirm this, here's her sock puppet account. This is my first time seeing her proof, and it's fucking nothing. I don't even know what program this uses. It's literally nothing. And this is what's being used as proof that I'm some super predator? Are you fucking kidding me? This is the most amateur hour shit show of a fucking interview I've ever seen. For 10 fucking years, I've had people accuse me of craven shit, and this is their fucking source? Brittany makes excuses for why she doesn't have chat logs, and then when she shows chat logs, they either show her starting shit or her talking to her fucking self. How did anyone ever take this bitch seriously? I'm not even doing the rest of the interview. She goes on to make claims about me that rely on this, and it's nothing. It's fucking nothing. It's not just that Brittany is lying, it's that she's so obviously lying that you have to have an axe to grind against me in order to not recognize her as a liar. Brittany likes to claim I run an echo chamber where I tell my audience to not listen to anything anyone has to say against me, and that's why it's been this difficult to deplatform me. But no, making this video, my entire Discord went through her garbage, and she doesn't have anything. Here's the truth of my friendship with Brittany. We had a quasi-sexual relationship, but a poor friendship because she was just a fair-weather friend. She was present when she wanted to vent and not present when I wanted to. So I stopped being friends with her. And she has been so angry about it for 10 fucking years that she's decided to present consensual acts between us as coercion and pressure, saying, I know it looks like I consented, but I was walking on eggshells around her. Fuck you, Brittany. This is a common theme in some of the claims made against me. People will consent to things with me while we're friends, and then when the friendship turns sour, turn around and claim I abuse them. I'm not even getting into Patch because it's the same thing. I commissioned art of my puppet from them, and then after the friendship ended, they decided they felt shortchanged and spun that into a story about me supposedly exploiting their financial situation. And that's literally it. That's their whole fucking story. You can't fucking do that, especially if you're not going to communicate that with me beforehand. The thing is, these two, as well as my ex being allergic to communicating anything, messed me up. I practically demand clear and upfront communication from people now, and I will cut friendships with people who won't do it. I will not be friends with anyone who can't communicate clearly and frankly. I can't do anything if you don't tell me. And if you aren't comfortable with something, don't fucking tell me that you are. And that's KP's video and all of Brittany's complaints, sans her section on Courtney, which is mostly reassurances KP didn't do anything wrong and citing Courtney's video itself, which we'll get into later. But first, we have to get into Ethel. Fuck me, here we go. So Ethel Thurston goes by the name of Essence of Thought, and further cements my belief that the closer your username gets to true smarty rational brain mind, the farther you are from it in real life. Ethel tried to make a career off of being an LGBT advocate, but then decided to pivot to making drama videos because, well, you take a fucking guess. Ethel's videos are pretty nakedly obvious clout chasing, and I'm only including her because she's one of the few channels that tries to break a story rather than react to it. But Ethel spams these videos out faster than you can blink, and going through these things has been the most mind-numbing tedium on the planet because she is a fucking moron, and also very angry. Ethel's always on the attack with someone, she's always beefing with someone, and it's just exhausting listening to her try and claim she knows how someone thinks and being obviously wrong. I'm not even covering all of them, like the one where she argues with her own imagination, just the ones that are important to this video. Whatever, let's fucking go. So Ethel's first video that isn't a waste of time is accusing me of running some kind of secret child predator ring. All this is based off the claims of someone named GladeCat, who claimed that one day I posted an 18+ stream, and they asked, why is this 18+? To which I apparently said, watch it and find out, where they went in and saw my boobs at one point. Now Ethel never showed a screenshot of this, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. I even searched back through Glade's messages and the deleted message log, I could not find it. However, that does sound like something I would say. I have, and still do, have a habit of showing open contempt for people who ask me questions for which I believe the answer is obvious. However, if this incident did happen, I didn't learn about it until years after the fact when Glade showed up on Essence of Thought's video, upon which I immediately banned all minors from the server. The server had a rule that you had to be 16 or over to be here, because that's the age at which I, as a server admin, am no longer legally responsible for anything you do. But as a rule, it kept me to my own private channels because I don't like interacting with teenagers because there's no nice way to say it, they're dumb as fuck, but after this incident I changed it to 19, the Canadian age of majority. Here's the thing, this is the only one I myself believe, even though I can't find any record of it anywhere, because it's my own reflexive rudeness getting me into trouble, which is a common thing with me unfortunately. So Glade, if you're watching this, I have no idea why you would be, I should have just straight up told you why it was 18 plus and saved us all the trouble, and I'm sorry. So while this incident is a pretty cut and dry instance of me dropping the ball as a server admin, Ethel decided to run with it and claim that because this single person had a complaint about my conduct, a rather plausible complaint at that, this means I am secretly grooming thousands of minors at once. See, this is Ethel's train of logic. Because I cover all ages media like Pokemon and the Owl House and Happy Tree Friends, to Ethel that means my audience is automatically minors, and the entire purpose of covering these things at all is to bring in minors. This ignores the reality that there is a sizable audience of adult for these things, and those are the people who mostly watch these videos. But when Ethel wants to push a narrative, she ignores everything around her. You have to be pretty dumb to not know at this point that adult cartoon fandom is obviously a thing. But I don't need conjecture because I have proof. These are my audience metrics by age. Outside of demographics that just don't watch YouTube all that much, minors are the exception in my audience, and they have always been the exception in my audience. This isn't the first time I've sourced my own audience metrics like this, and the response I get from Ethel and people like Ethel is, "That's not reliable." Now, while it is true that minors tend to lie about their age online to access content otherwise locked off, it's an anecdote that has no real numbers attached to it. It's basically, well, I remember doing it, therefore, and they don't provide numbers for it at all. And it's really sketchy to go from minors lie about their age to the majority of your audience are minors, even though you are showing data that says opposite because I said so. The vast majority of this video is just arguments like this to argue against the simple reality that the stream was age-gated. You can argue it's against YouTube's TOS, but I mean, that's a minor complaint and certainly not the smoking gun you think it is. The only consequence there is a community guideline strike, and that's a risk I chose to take. You want to argue terms of service? I'm pretty sure this kind of sustained targeted harassment is against YouTube's terms of service, but that's not enough for Ethel. In her eyes, if I'm covering media aimed at children, I can't do anything not safe for work anywhere else in my own spaces, even if those spaces are explicitly adults only and don't allow minors in. Ethel's only smoking gun here is an honest mistake that I immediately ensured could not happen again. This is not the sign of a predator, and everything else she claims is just her opinion and her assumptions about my character, claiming I only talked about the brony fandom's pedophilia problem to draw in minors who think I'm safe. And that's the problem with talking about Ethel. She makes these wild leaps of logic and starts declaring she knows how other people think. And you really can't counter that with anything other than you're fucking crazy. Someone could trip and Ethel will start aggressively accusing them of deliberately conspiring to assault the ground. And for all these serious accusations, Ethel never really shows any proof. She shows circumstantial proof and then her own opinions as if it's proof. Lily's playing Pokemon, which is rated E, therefore the stream is explicitly intended for kids, regardless of the rating or the fact that I swear like a trucker, therefore she is a super predator. Reminder, this all started from an honest mistake, but honest mistakes don't exist in Ethel's mind, especially not when milking something for content is on the line. Ethel even tries to argue against the idea that a 17-year-old should know 18 plus means not for them on the basis that YouTube's climate age restricts LGBT content at all. So minors won't know if a stream is 18 plus for being not safe for work or because it talks about LGBT issues. Now, this has never been true for my work. I talk about LGBT issues all the time and I never get age-gated. I say the bad words like fuck and kill and suicide and I don't get demonetized for it. Here's a video of me talking about slurs, and it's not age-gated. But this is especially not true for streams. Stream VODs might get age-gated, but the actual live event? You have to age-gate that yourself. Furthermore, we have no real source that YouTube's LGBT filtering is that all-encompassing. I know teenagers tend to believe you'll get shadow banned if you say gun, but you don't. You could argue doing this at all is tacky and inappropriate in general. I would not disagree with you. I haven't been on camera in years, but it's a far stretch from Lily is acting unprofessionally to this weird fucking Pizzagate conspiracy that Ethel has cooked up. Her next video is even worse. Whereas the first one could confirm the event they were talking about happened and just got really inflammatory about how and why, this one doesn't even have that. So like a lot of people on Tumblr, seriously, you can find an entire ecosystem of this shit. For a while, I was indulging the fact that Tumblr allowed NSFW content by answering NSFW anon messages. So Ethel had the brilliant idea to bring someone on to go, oh yeah, I sent some of those. Which ones? Don't know. They couldn't find them. According to them, I reset my Tumblr. For the record, my account wasn't reset until 2 months ago. That Tumblr account they cite, I'd had since I was 19. In order to reset it and keep the same blog, I'd have had to delete somewhere around 45,000 posts. You tell me how I'm supposed to do that. Look, they don't show it because nothing's stopping multiple people from claiming that Anna is theirs. It's a perfect crime, really. It's trust me, bro, with the most plausible deniability. Then Ethel goes on to make the same claims as the previous video, that because my YouTube channel covers cartoons, I'm not allowed to host adult content anywhere else, and doing so is passively grooming children who are definitely in the room with us right now. And she proceeds to take every instance of me arming people with knowledge against grooming as a secret grooming tactic. All of Ethel's videos are working backward from the idea Lily is a groomer, and so everything that counters that has to be some Manchurian shit. To quote one of my patrons, "You may not like it, but your tone, your reactions, your attitudes, and boundaries all scream abuse survivor, and everyone who has seen or lived through some shit can tell and relate to that. Abusers don't set boundaries like you do. They constantly try to tear them down or bargain with people to trick them into lowering their guards. Abusers don't avoid being alone in scenarios with minors or vulnerable people like you do. They actively work to create those situations. Abusers don't spend their lives educating others or calling out red flags and problematic behavior like you have done for so many years. They trivialize serious matters or holler like hit dogs the minute their moral integrity is called into question. Abusers don't casually talk about their abuse, trying to move past it like you've done in this very post. They trauma dump and try to portray themselves as the eternal victim, followed by immediate demands of and exploitation of all variety, emotional, economic, sexual, etc. In Ethel's deranged mind prison, all of these things, so clearly visible to my audience, are actually secret, new, unheard of grooming tactics, especially the part where all of this happens in public in front of other people. She goes as far as to claim that my outrage over actual instances of grooming are just performances, because the way in which I have in the past deconstructed the red flags of groomers and sexual abusers is something an abuse survivor does. We all gain insight and wisdom from our abuse to an extent, and the first thing any of us wants to do with it is arm other people so they don't have to go through the same horrors we did. I'll cop to the fact I fell into the same fallacy of trying to reclaim my trauma through hypersexuality. I certainly don't do it anymore, and I've made the point to say to others, no, it doesn't actually help. But all of that is just some secret conspiracy in Ethel's eyes. My strict response to people acting up and violating my boundaries in my spaces, in clear disregard of my rules, just more control in Ethel's eyes. The proof I'm a groomer is that I won't let people flagrantly ignore my boundaries. That is what a fucking groomer would say, Ethel. But the worst part is when Ethel tries to wallpaper over all of this by inventing a new kind of grooming, parasocial grooming. Heads up, if you're a sexual abuse or grooming survivor, this is going to make you angry. Ethel makes the claim that by being sexual in a space that minors could hypothetically access, either through ignoring the rules or just by happenstance, that itself is a form of grooming. To use Glade as an example, because Glade walked into a room labeled adults only and saw my tits, that is grooming by default. So many of the other person's accusations rely on things being easily accessible, i.e., I didn't ask for your ID or give you a skill testing question. I said explicitly, this is 18+, or don't do this if you're under 18. And you ignored that. Basically, you didn't try to keep me out hard enough for my liking. You could argue how much responsibility creators have to ensure minors don't find their After Dark blog. I would argue if 18+ only is good enough for the platform, it's good enough for everyone. But to jump from that discussion to inventing a new kind of grooming you can do passively just by existing, this is what Republicans use to justify drag bans, which inherently target trans women. That us being sexual in adult spaces is inherently harmful to children. Ethel is a trans woman diving into literal anti-trans rhetoric. She is using the Florida state playbook. Grooming has to be targeted. Grooming involves breaking down someone's idea of right and wrong. Grooming involves conditioning someone to believe that what you're doing to them is okay. You can't groom someone just by existing in their fucking postcode. Words mean things, Ethel, and you can't make up your own new definition when you don't have anything, because that's why she does it. To accuse me of grooming minors, you would have to have DMs of me and a minor, and you don't have them Because they don't exist. Ethel's harassment of me makes me angry just because a moron being allowed to speak makes me angry by default. But this right here, inventing a new kind of passive grooming, completely ignoring what grooming even means, all to go after bad trans woman Mino-like? That's not even irresponsible or problematic. That is straight up fucking evil. All of her claims against me rely on trust me, bro. And she knows this, which is why she invented a new kind of grooming that's just a teenager got into the adult part of a website and therefore it's your fault. No, watch your fucking kids, asshole. It's not my fucking problem that you're asleep at the wheel. If I was directly targeting these kids, that'd be one thing, but they happened to be in the vicinity when I was doing something in an adult space. This is not the fucking crime you think it is. Ethel is completely detached from reality. At the end of the video, she tries to make arguments that because Glade and the other person felt like it was grooming, that makes it grooming. That's not how this works. I feel this way, and therefore you are this way, is where you go when you're caught lying. She then claims there is no harm caused by referring to this as grooming, except for the harassment and sustained abuse of a trans woman you know is not guilty of the crime you're accusing of. Lying about me carries no harm, I guess. Like, if nothing else convinced you, the fact that she just says, well, maybe it's not grooming, but we can just call it that anyway? Good fucking God. What's even better is Courtney tried to get in contact with Ethel to get screenshots of these incidents to put me in prison. For all of her projection, Courtney is at least trying to look like she's taking action. But because Ethel has no proof, she couldn't give it to her, and she refused to get Courtney in contact with either of them. Now, this is all a lot of stupid back and forth where two perpetual drama queens trade snide remarks like 12-year-old girls fighting over the same guy, which they are. But the main argument for why Ethel won't hand over the screenshots is because she doesn't have them. They don't exist. We've been through this already. But at one point, Courtney says, I don't watch her content. It's boring and its dictation could rival the most ancient of Harvard professors. These are people who are supposed to be taking these things seriously, you know? I mean, she's not wrong. Ethel's content is mind-numbing, but I'm fully aware that she's a lying piece of shit. But like, you're supposed to be taking this shit seriously. And it's not personally entertaining enough for you? And while Ethel talks like a college professor whose head struck the headboard too many times the night before, Courtney talks like the antagonist on a Disney Channel original sitcom. Even Courtney herself goes back and forth between citing examples of me supposedly breaking the law, but then turning around and making excuses not to have me charged. And while cops can be negligent in their duties, that's not where trans women are concerned. The argument has always been, the cops don't take sex abuse seriously. Bro, I am an indigenous trans woman. Of course they're gonna take it seriously. This is how you know these people are just drama ghouls. That's the important thing to remember. This is their entertainment. This is their soap opera. YouTube drama, even with extremely serious accusations, is a soap opera. They don't want their targets arrested. It means the end of their entertainment. Some of these people have oriented their entire identities around me. At one point, Ethel calls this group of morons the Lily Orchard critical community, and they all just keep arguing back and forth about why police haven't done anything about this imaginary predator. This is such a twisting of what ACAB is even about in the first place. It won't be the cops that prosecute me, it'll be the Crown's lawyers. And they're only doing this because they can't provide evidence because they don't have it because it doesn't exist. At all avenues, Ethel is the scummiest clout whore on the fucking planet. She had the gall to accuse another drama whore of plagiarizing her. Imagine being me in that situation, watching two parasites argue over who has the right to this open wound.
Of course they're unheated. How am I supposed to hear prayers coming out of my ass?
Ethel is a next level leech, because you look at the videos about me and they're getting 6-figure views. Then you look at her other videos and they have no views. And now you know why she's doing this. Ethel relies on me to push her content so much, we could call her a sugar baby. I can't even bother going into the others. I can feel my fucking brain melting listening to this dumb bitch. I had a Tumblr post up effectively saying my stalkers want to fuck me so bad it makes them look stupid, and Ethel called this sexual violence directed at her specifically. Ethel's open dishonesty is disgusting. She will lie and misrepresent and then make shit up about you to your fucking face. Ethel is one of the people I'm considering pursuing legal action against, because this could not be a more clear-cut case of defamation. The willful malice with which Ethel does everything, the open dishonesty, the way she makes things up on the spot, and her refusal to give evidence for her claims, these all communicate malice of forethought, which should be her real channel name. Whether or not I do is up in the air. I'm in discussion with lawyers about whether I'd have a case or whether it'd be even worth pursuing. We're in different countries, and the likelihood of getting anything from doing it is questionable because Ethel doesn't have anything. I have considered suing and going into debt and eating the debt on the lawyer fees just to put some damn stress on this bitch, because she is such a fucking scumbag and she deserves the stress. But I have to weigh whether or not that's even worth it. Even if you have a case, people act like suing someone who is defaming you is an admission of guilt, which is a fucked up attitude that corporate America has pushed on people. Before we move on, I have to make this clear. Do not find Glade and Mackenzie and harass them. For one, as we've covered, Glade is owed a direct apology by me. But at the end of the day, the two of them are just pawns in this stupid fucking drama game. I mean, what I said before still stands. Leave me alone and there won't be any issue. And I expect you all to hold to that as well. Anyway, that's enough about Ethel. We're moving on to fucking Lele over here. Heads up, this section is going to get into some really heavy subject matter. What I'm about to detail, both Courtney's lies and what she actually did, are absolutely horrific. If you don't have the stomach for this, you must leave immediately. Furthermore, this part is the most he said, she said that we're going to get. Neither of us have evidence for our claims, and the most I have is Courtney contradicting herself. So moving on to the big one, Courtney Peet. My sister, unfortunately, a person who treats projection like an extreme sport. I haven't seen Courtney in 13 years since she ran away chasing some messed up bad boy she was obsessed with. And we know this was the reason because when she ran away, we found her diary where she'd constantly written her name with his last name. She'd already decided to take the name of the last person she was obsessed with. I'm sure she doesn't do that anymore. Anyway, I hadn't seen her since until about last year when she kicked in the door of my life, shrieking and foaming at the mouth, and made it clear to everyone who hadn't seen her in 12 years that she was still mentally 17. I didn't think mental age was a real thing until I saw my 30-year-old sister delivering the kind of bad attempts at sick burns I see from 17-year-old brain-dead simpletons today. So unlike with the others who alleged crimes with no proof and made excuses, Courtney's claims are based on things she says happened when we were children, which means proof couldn't be offered even if she wanted to. So let me make this clear. I'm not even going to pretend to be taking these things seriously because they are not serious. Courtney contradicts herself all the time, making the mistake of trying to paint me simultaneously as a dangerous predator, but also as a worthless wimp who everyone bullied for fun. And those two things really don't go together. So we're going to be covering two things: her video with all of her delusional claims and contrasting them with posts from her now nuked Tumblr blog. It's important to do this because in a video, Courtney could prepare everything beforehand and present something that sounds plausible and maybe have someone who isn't insane look over it, but when she was on Tumblr, she had a nasty habit of letting her spite get away from her. Courtney starts out the important part of the video by claiming I coerced her into sexual games in private and details them and other similar things, like claiming I kept molesting her in her sleep. She doesn't say how old we were, but it's clearly before age 11. This didn't happen. It's just straight up not true. In fact, I know how old we're supposed to be because we have the screenshots of it. On Tumblr, I shared a story that ironically humanizes Courtney and that when we were little, she used to be afraid of the dark and would call me into her room to sit by her bed and talk to her until she was sleepy. Something I did because at 7 years old, I love my sister and I didn't want her to feel scared in her own room. Courtney would have been 6. So we're a year apart. A year and a half, actually. Exactly a year and a half. I was born on May 30th, 1992. She was born on November 25th, 1993. Anyway, after posting that, a story that humanizes Courtney and makes her more sympathetic, she screenshotted a completely separate post related to it and claims, well, all of this. So I was doing all of this at age 7. This is medically impossible. I can't begin to explain how many things that aren't a child's fault have to go wrong for a 7-year-old to even think to do any of these things she is alleging. More than a few people have cocked an ear that this was rather unusual behavior and turned to me and went, Lily, were you being sexually abused as a child? And the answer is yes. I've talked about it before. From ages 6 to 11, I was being molested by a teacher. And from ages 14 to 15, I was being raped by an underclassman. Courtney even confirms both of these events happening in her first appearance with Poppy and Xena, and claims she did nothing about it because she was trying to be the peacekeeper. That's certainly a decision, but she would have been 10 just as the first one was ending, so whatever, we'll let it go. Granted, I never touched Courtney, not even as a reaction to being molested as a child. As a child, I loved my sister. I may not have treated her very well, but I would have never done something like that to her. But very long-term abuse gives her a really eye-catching sob story. Lily molested me when I was a baby, never mind the fact that nothing about that adds up, is a really eye-catching sob story to rope in the drama whores. But she's trying to paint me as someone who was just born wrong, who was genetically rotten and came out of the womb a vile monster, which is not real. It's not a real thing that happens. No child does these things of their own volition. Courtney then alleges I snuck into a room at age 11 and inquired about incest. This is not true. I did not know what incest was until I was 15, when a youth care worker told me what it was. Why did a youth care worker have to explain it to me? We'll get to that. She then tries to show screenshots proving that I'm into incest, and what she shows is 2 characters from a video game, a post of me saying my guilty pleasure trope is someone utterly adoring someone they're close to, and a dumb meme. All of this with her quoting something I never said. I guess she's trying to claim that because my profile pic when she took those screenshots was Iris, that Iris and Kira are supposed to be representations of me and her, which is not the case. This is the problem. She knows her claims against me as a child, which are painted with deliberate malice, don't hold up on their own because, like, are you stupid? 7-year-olds don't do that. So she's trying to claim Lily's still like this, but it's hard for her to do that. For full disclosure, these 2 are Gorian's Ward and Imoen, who are the best of friends with a closeness that borders on romantic at times, until the 2 discover that they're actually siblings halfway through their second adventure. And these 2 are Iris and Kira, 2 original characters of mine. Iris is a mute clinical psychologist and Kira is her sister, and the 2 of them live together along with Kira's wife, and they've been very close their entire lives to the point other people get weird about it. I've always favored high intimacy relationships in all their forms. Friends, partners, and siblings being very close and very touchy-feely and adoring each other. I live for that shit. And this post here about, you know the friendship's real when there's a rumor you're gay for each other, is a joke about the fact that when people are really close, others assume their relationship is romantic. Hell, this is the entire premise behind Courtney's accusations. I read this as one way, therefore it is, and therefore you're weird. Like, no honey, that's literally the joke. The joke is amatonormativity. Like, that's her whole shtick. Oh, Lily talked about one of the most infamous and positively received mods for one of the most popular RPGs ever made. Clearly that means she's down bad for me specifically. Hell, she does this a second time where she claims that because my favorite Family Guy character is Meg, that's proof of my guilt? What? I like Meg because she's the black sheep of the family. She just like me for real. Hey, you know who I don't like, and who you are awfully similar to? Then she goes on to claim that I would steal her underwear off her... Are you fucking kidding me? She goes on to claim that I would steal her underwear off her body at night, all without her waking up and screaming and beating the shit out of me. There are so many levels with which that doesn't work. You know, Court, stealing them out of your dresser would have been a much more plausible lie. She then goes on to claim that she told our father about all this, apparently giving him a handwritten list that my father gave to my psychiatrist, who told our father not to leave me alone with Courtney under any circumstances. Now, the list never happened, but the psychiatrist did. Wait, Lily, if there was no list or confession, why would the psychiatrist tell your father not to leave her alone with you? Because I confessed to my psychiatrist what Courtney had done to me. This order wasn't for Courtney's safety, it was for mine. See, Courtney made a grave error in judgment because she's been simultaneously trying to paint me as some dangerous predator, but she's also really vindictive and sadistic, and so she would include every humiliating story about me she could think of. One of them was to rub it in my face about how much our parents hated me. I showed it in a video. It's this post. You know what, Lily? Let's run with your Courtney is the favorite narrative. You know, our mother told me about once a month to my face that I should have drowned that thing at birth in regards to you. Our father said more behind your back than to your face that you're the one we actually care about, Courtney. I'm the favorite, so that means I can pick up the phone tomorrow, say 3 words, and get whatever I want out of those people. Can you do that? They drove to Montreal for me. They bought plane tickets for me. Even to this day, when I scream at our mother about her rapist son, she ends the interaction with, "You can always come home, Courtney. Do you get that?" Oh wait, they paid to get you out of the house. Whoops. If I'm the favorite, that makes you that thing. How's that make you feel? Feel better? If I'm the favorite, that means I'm still the one that's wanted back, while you're that thing. These are the people you're siding with, Lily, dearest. People who don't want you. How's that working out for you? And then she goes on to claim, based on nothing, that I'm on disability, and then disparage people on disability. The thing about siding with our parents jumped out at me. This squabble is between you and me, Courtney. How am I siding with our parents? What does not siding with them look like? Oh, but there's a second post. While you may not know my father, you're not wrong in the assumption that he too played a part. He was the one that spanked Lily way past what even a spanking advocate would call appropriate. He was the one that got loud and aggressive with her while he was almost 6 foot and 300 pounds and she was maybe 5'4" and 86 pounds and his child. He didn't give a shit when Lily was being harassed at school, didn't care when she got hit in the head with a rock and needed stitches. He was just pissed he had to leave work to take her to the hospital. He used punches as a form of affection to the point I started punching my friends in the arm at 6 and couldn't understand why they were upset upset. He never stopped Cameron from trying to assault her and would try and punish me for getting myself involved. Just to pause, this post seems to be where some people are getting the idea that my brother sexually abused me. No, he didn't. Our brother was physically aggressive and really liked being rough with us, and with me specifically, he would practice every new pressure point he learned. Still bad, but like the fault is on our parents for letting it happen rather than on him. I mean, it'd be up to me if I still wanted to be angry about that, and I'm not. I love my brother. Anyway, back to the crazy. He was a big fan of stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, to the point even I expected to hear it from my teachers if I got caught crying at school. He was also a fan of I feed you, clothe you, and put a roof over your head, as if doing the bare minimum to keep himself out of prison was, after having unprotected sex, is something you had to thank him for. He was an incredibly abusive man. It didn't matter that he never punched us in the face. Those are her words detailing how horrifically abusive our parents were toward me, how much contempt they viewed my entire existence. My own mother wanted to drown me. Are these the kind of parents who would hear an accusation of sexual assault against the child they hate and do nothing? Our brother had already been kicked out of the house and was permanently living in the custody of the province at this point. They were not averse to dropping their children on the province's doorstep and washing their hands of the matter. If Courtney had accused me of sexually abusing her, our parents would have believed it, and I would have been out of the house. My father had split on his children to an absurd degree. He believed any accusation made against me. He was convinced my behavioral issues were some deliberate act of malice against him. He called me the Antichrist many times as a child. If Courtney had made this accusation, my life would have been over. Courtney knows this. These are her words. This is straight from her fucking mouth, which is why the truth is that she blackmailed me with it. When we were teenagers, Courtney walked into my room one afternoon and made a simple ultimatum. Don't resist or I'll tell Dad you raped me. And then she raped me that day, and continued to do so for a year. I mentioned being sexually abused at 2 points in my life by 2 different people. Here are their names. What followed was the worst fucking year of my life, where my mental health, already on a downward spiral, spiraled even harder to the point that I was having manic episodes in school, made extremely alarming and upsetting remarks about wanting to kill everyone, and sometimes just sitting in the quad and wishing for death. It's hard to describe what it's like being in that kind of situation, being preyed on and having your own reputation as a difficult child used against you like this. It's a very empty, oppressive feeling. There's an image I keep in my pictures folder of like a suburban street, but it's in thick fog and it's overly gray. That's the best way I can describe the kind of abuse I had endured up until that point. This really was just what life was for me, and I did not believe that there was any way out or any alternative because this was just my entire life. When you get a reputation in your early years for being a behavioral problem, that follows you until you become an adult. Nobody believes you when you complain about how you're treated. Everyone assumes you did something if you're ever hurt, and it goes on your record so new faces are primed not to believe you. And then people who see that you can be hurt and get away with it will start hurting you. I was diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder, whose risk factors are listed as abuse and more abuse. Heads up for parents, if your child is diagnosed with this, your kid's being abused. If it's not you, you'd better find out who. After a certain point, you just give up and you stop trying. I didn't tell anyone what Courtney was doing to me. I didn't think it would matter. I already knew what I was going to hear, and I just didn't bother. I was hospitalized for the following year because I was so unstable, I was considered a danger to myself. It eventually reached the point where people couldn't ignore it or write it off anymore, and they had to do something. I think the tipping point was me talking about violence to my math teacher. I was first held in the Wood Street Center for 2 months, and a no-contact order was placed against my parents and my sister. My brother was the only one allowed to visit me, which he did only once because I was out in Truro. I was then taken to the Adolescent Center for Treatment, which was run by the IWK. I was there for just over a year. The order against my parents was lifted after 3 months, and the order against my sister was extended after I reacted so violently to the idea she might visit me that I had to be isolated. And at first in the hospital, I was unable to be helped because I wouldn't talk to anyone. I didn't trust them. Granted, I was doing better in the hospital even with that, just because I was out of that environment. And I was in an environment where the most you get from mouthing off to someone is like, I'll talk to you when you're ready to be respectful. Nobody screamed at me, nobody yelled at me, nobody threatened me. It was great, honestly. I only opened up to my primary worker 8 or 9 months in, a woman named Krista, and only after I received a promise of total confidentiality. The legality of that is murky. In Canada, psychiatrists are required to report abuse, but even minors still have the right to confidentiality. And given my medical records and the records they had on my parents, it was determined that it would only put me in more danger. And given that I was 16 when this came out, I was old enough to make those decisions about my own care. Given that I was already in an inpatient unit, there wasn't an immediate threat to me that had to be acted on in that moment. Luckily, when I returned home, whatever had possessed Courtney to do this apparently faded, and she didn't trouble me ever again. Now, some of you may be thinking, hang on, Wouldn't Courtney have been 13 when this happened? You argued a 7-year-old couldn't do this without outside stimuli. What about a 13-year-old? Truthfully, you're right. There had to be something, but I don't know what it is. I mean, my first thought is abuse. What she was doing to me is about the only thing that gives any credence to the idea that our brother was doing something to her. But that's just my own wild speculation. It could have been someone else. It's not like she's gonna tell us the truth. But given the fact that she's in her 30s, taking my name and spends a lot of her time concocting this fantasy that I'm secretly into her, I mean, what other fucking conclusion am I supposed to draw here? All I know is there was something. So Courtney's responsibility for her actions is up in the air, and she's more interested in poisoning the well and covering her ass. I know the stalkers who are deeply invested in hating me will dismiss this, but Courtney's already detailed how the environment we grew up in doesn't support her claims against me. These are her own words contradicting her. Courtney's abuse had long-lasting consequences. I was messed up for a long time. Actually, no, granted, it wasn't entirely Courtney. I mean, like, the rest of the family, with the exception of Cameron, had a pretty big hand in it. I couldn't have healthy relationships with people because of it. I was unstable. I'd freak out if anyone touched me. I became reclusive when I finally moved out on my own. This is difficult for me to talk about because I know most of these little parasites are gonna scream lies based on nothing. KP claims in her big video about me that she used hard evidence, but we've already gone through her evidence. It's nothing. And what little there is contradicts what people are saying. And these morons take it at face value. Courtney has no proof other than pointing at unrelated things and going, "This is proof. You want me." Admittedly, I don't have proof either, other than her own words describing the way our home environment was set up to enable the abuse I suffered. Courtney claims one thing in her video, but we have proof of her contradicting herself. Courtney admits she was the favorite, that they adored her. She has admitted to it and tried to lie about it later. She incessantly swaps between trying to accuse me of being a predator and trying to humiliate me with embarrassing stories of me showing the red flags of abuse. Courtney is trying to claim that I want to fuck her based on the video games I play, while she's calling herself Courtney Orchard. I changed my name to Orchard long after she left. It isn't her name, and this is just fucking weird. And before she went on this warpath, she actually reached out to me. "Hey, it's Courtney. We need to talk. I can't imagine the fuckers who birthed us in any way are supportive." Supportive of what? I don't know. "And I've blamed you for a lot in our childhood that wasn't actually your fault. I'd like to change that. Text me or call me at..." She did this on DeviantArt. I didn't see it. I log into DeviantArt once in a blue moon, and I guess because I didn't answer in time, she started doing this. And then while she was having a bender on Tumblr, she kept bitching about the fact that I wouldn't talk things out with her. I mean, do I need to draw you a fucking map?
Hey, Angie, about earlier. Kill your whole fucking family. Work's really stressful. Little cocksucking piece of shit.
Let me make this clear. I don't want you going after Courtney over this. It's just like I said with the others. Her own words contradicting themselves aside, you only have my word that this even happened. This isn't even for the people who've already decided they don't like me. I'll never convince them because they've wrapped up too much ego in hating me. I've never wanted to discuss Courtney's abuse outside of, like, my therapists. I was prepared to take it to my fucking grave because I hate reliving it. I hate the person I became during it. I hate the person I was during my childhood. I hate Jerry Peet so much. I hate how he just gave up. I hate how he laid down and waited for death that wasn't coming. I hate how he let all of this happen to him with only screaming matches in response. I hate how he was so resigned to his own abuse, he would try and convince himself this is fine. People hear about what happened to me and they're surprised I'm not addicted to drugs or that I haven't killed anyone. I don't want to relive being him by going into more detail than I already have. The only one who knows the details is my wife. Our parents now know what Courtney has done, but they don't know the gory details, and it will stay that way. Courtney's behavior now, particularly taking my name, should be called out as the very creepy, obsessive behavior it is. But going after her over her sexual abuse, that should be my call to make. But I'll be honest with you, this woman terrifies me. Everyone else is a loser mauling over unrelated crap and clout chasing like crazy. And Brittany may be a terminally friendless forever alone type, but Courtney is just straight up insane. I don't want Courtney in that way. I never have. I don't want Courtney near me. I shudder to think what might have happened to me if I had answered that message in time, because given her behavior, she did not have altruistic intentions. The fact that she reached out saying she wanted to make amends for blaming me for things that weren't my fault, and then goes on a tirade that she's been on for over a year now, which is the truth here? She talks about how she suffered serious abuse and then has to garnish it with all these petty teenage girl digs at me. Why is she so distracted? If you had a story about abuse, wouldn't you stick to it? Hell, she's made the same accusations against our brother and father before. Sure, Courtney, you were getting passed around like a fucking piñata. I was in therapy for a long time dealing with the consequences of her abuse. I've had a lot of complicated feelings about my sister over the years. Some days I've hated her. Other days I've wanted to forgive her. I know that sounds absolutely fucking crazy. I have that thought and I think, what the fuck is wrong with me? But when I look at this, Courtney, you frighten me. I think I dodged a bullet not answering that message in time. Whatever you're doing now, I have no reason to believe answering that would not have been 10 times worse. Stay the hell away from me. I should not have to do this. As we've gone through, the evidence against me is literally nothing. Screenshots with no names attached, anonymous messages saying, trust me bro, assumptions made about my audience to claim that I am grooming thousands of children at once just by existing in public, which is such nakedly obvious transphobia. This is what conservatives say about trans femmes all the time. Lily initiated unwanted physical roleplay with me, says someone who shows a screenshot of her initiating it. Lily confessed to sexual sadism to my face, says someone who shows a screenshot with no names, profile pictures, or timestamps. Lily doing 18+ content in her own space is grooming because her audience is mostly minors. My audience is not mostly minors. Lily raped me as a child and her parents did nothing, says someone who then details how her parents hated me so much they wouldn't have protected me from anything and assumed the worst of me at all times. Lily is faking her heritage, says someone with the exact same claim to their own heritage as me. At every avenue, they are asked to show proof and make excuses, usually saying the lack of proof is more proof to my guilt. This is the most ridiculous shit show I've ever seen in my fucking life. When YouTubers get clapped for preying on minors, there's entire dossiers of evidence, and there's none of that here. And my accusers keep bounding back and forth between accusing me of heinous crimes and trying to humiliate me and dunk on me at every turn. KP and Brittany were cackling in this fucking video. They don't take their own garbage seriously. Brittany and Courtney are fucking Kiwi Farms users. These people claim to have definitive proof that I'm some kind of super predator who can't hide her crimes, and they won't do anything about it. Oh, the cyber tip line hung up on me. Bullshit! Oh, well, we can't have her arrested because we don't live in our country. That's not how anything works. Oh, well, all cops are bastards and won't do anything. You're already priming yourself to not accept me getting off as innocent, and you won't bother trying to vindicate yourself in that? These people will screech and scream and act like complete shit-slinging gibbons about how they know I'm a monster and have proof of it, and then they show nothing and do nothing. They'll show things that openly reveal themselves to be liars in real time. They make excuses for why they don't have to do anything and just keep farming content. It's not even that I haven't been charged with anything. Nobody's even checked. I've never been questioned by police. I've never been bothered by law enforcement. And when people who don't have a grudge against me look into these claims, they find the same nothing I've just detailed. The fucking Canadian military is looking at this crap because of what Courtney's been claiming about my brother, and they can't believe the lunacy of what they're looking at. These people cannot be putting off red flags for abusers and liars any harder, and all those red flags get ignored. Why? Well, the audience for this garbage has already admitted to why. I unsubscribed from Lily's channel because she has a pure hatred for anime, and the way she insulted anime fans by calling them disgusting weebs. When Lily made a video called Steven Universe's Garbage and Here's Why, and her Dungeon Meshi video came out, I knew it was the last straw for me and suffered a mental breakdown because of her.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
That's what all this is about? You guys are losing your fucking minds because I said some cartoons were cringe?
That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what it's always been about.
I'm not joking. I've said all this is just because of my media takes in the past, because they can't stop making that clear. Steven Universe's Garbage and Here's Why is brought up in the comments of every single one of these videos. People are still so utterly seething over me not liking a show to the point they will believe anything about me without looking into it. These people make up entire mythologies about me ruining the reputation of someone whose career is doing fucking fine. They blame me for a show getting canceled 2 years before I said anything about it. They make me the villain in their fandom. They spend more time bitching about me than they do talking about the thing they like. They accuse me of destroying media literacy because other people don't like the show they are unhealthily attached to. And in the comments of videos where I'm being accused of serious crimes, they still can't stop bawling over the fact that I insulted their blorbo. So I'm being accused of being the sex pest to end all sex pests, who is simultaneously a rampant predator who would make Jeffrey Epstein blush, and yet has simultaneously avoided all criminal charges despite doing all of this in public, and it's being taken at face value because some fanboys cannot accept the idea of someone not liking their thing. That's what all of this is about. It's what it's always been about. When someone expresses distaste for my media takes, this pustule is in their fucking DMs instantly. They whip up harassment mobs out of media fandom like it's their own personal Gamergate. Actually, no. That's how Gamergate started. A guy's partner broke up with him, and then he went on the warpath, and a bunch of misogynistic little trolls invented a lie about collusion and corruption to go after bad non-binary person Mino-like. The way I have been treated over the pettiest fucking garbage is nothing short of sociopathic. For the crime of being kinda cringe and having media takes you don't like, I have been defamed, harassed, assaulted in real life, had death threats made against me, I've been pedo-jacketed, stalked, doxxed, I've been perved on, I've been sexually harassed, I've been forced to see into the deranged lunacy that is my incestuous heathen of a sister's head. I've had friends take our falling out so personally they've rescinded their consent for things years after the fact and tried to make me out to be a sexual abuser. I've had people who cannot obey a single boundary in their goddamn life turn around and act like I'm the problem for it. I get crap for being short-tempered with my audience over boundaries or the fact that they immediately do the thing I ask them not to do. But you've now seen into the abyss of over a decade of harassment, gaslighting, flagrantly ignored boundaries, and abuse. If you've ever wondered why is she like this, this is why I'm like this. You can't be treated for 20 fucking years like your own consent and feelings on anything doesn't matter, and then not be upset when people continue to do it. This is why I'm so raw about people recommending me shit, because it's just the flagrant disregard of my boundaries that I'm so sick of. I'm sick of being treated like my boundaries don't matter, which means, yeah, sometimes I lash out at someone who didn't really do anything malicious in retrospect. If that was ever you, I'm sorry, but it has been my entire life of shit like this. I know I can be nasty to my audience sometimes, which is why it means the world to me that so many of you stood up to help me. Going through like 10 years of this garbage and saving me the nightmare of having to watch so many dishonest videos about me, one after another all at once, it means more to me than you will know. I am so sorry for being so cruel to you and taking out my anger with all of these people on you over the years. I'll be better, I promise. If you've been waiting all this time for me to respond to all of these accusations, I hope this has given you relief or closure. Seeing the dearth of actual evidence and the way in which these people put out red flags like crazy should assuage any further worries. And if they have real evidence, if they think I've misrepresented them, they're more than welcome to show it. And if you don't believe me because you've already decided I was guilty and you think accusations are evidence, and you're still seething over bad critical lady Mino-like, then
die.
I'm Lily. Thank you for your time.